Kits and Wagers is back for Game Week 29 in the Premier League. We got 6 bets for everyone and a special Carabao Cup, EFL Cup final bet coming from our guy, Chris Owen. Chris, happy Thursday. We're talking on Thursday ahead of the weekend here. Chris is back home and he is recovered from Tuesday's debacle, is what we'll call it.
Yeah. Am I recovered? I don't think so. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, maybe not back to 100%. Our last podcast I was down in New Orleans for our good friend and friend of the pod, John McKechnie's bachelor party. As those things go, they can be fatiguing. And I did make it back, normal week as is. And, I felt like, this is lower, I'm in my 30s. Like I just can't bounce back like I used to. Don't have that kind of stamina. So it did take a couple of days. It's Thursday now. So I feel like I am kind of close, but it did not help that Liverpool crashed out of the Champions League on Tuesday. All I'm going to say, I'm not going to dwell on it. PSG, amazing team. Like they played 210 minutes, and it was they were the better team, and so good for them. I'm surprisingly not salty about it at all. I just I'm kind of rooting for PSG now. They have like so many fun players that I kind of came to appreciate as they just shut down Liverpool over 2 legs. So good for them. But we're talking Premier League here this week. We got you mentioned the EFL Cup final on Sunday. Which I'll definitely be putting a little bet down. I had a really rough weekend last weekend with the bets. Went 0 for 3. I was up for a good portion of the season. I'm back down. But we look at that and we see that and we say, let's continue to hit those.
Let's bounce back.
Yeah, it's bounce back season, baby. So, hopefully you weren't down. You weren't getting the life sucked out of you last weekend. But did you have how was the week? Sounds like you're pretty locked in on some basketball here too.
Yeah, we got a lot of college basketball going on. We'll have some college basketball content going over at RotoWire. Check that out. It's going to be on the fantasy basketball page. We're going to have some videos over there, probably some betting content as well as the tournament gets going for the, I guess we'll say, American listeners and watchers of this show. But yeah, last week, I did okay. I went 2-1. I hit on my 2 corner bets, if I remember correctly. I had Bournemouth race to 5 corners against Tottenham, and I had Manchester United under 3.5 corners against Arsenal. I believe those are the 2 ones I hit on this show. Both teams to score no in the Everton game, which did not hit. It was a 1-1 result, of course, is how that usually runs. But you mentioned John. So shouts to the Bachelor bets. He got a late Joao Pedro PK to hit that one. So shouts to John with the Bachelor bet. But let's get into Game Week 29. We're starting Saturday. We have Ipswich Town, which are likely headed to relegation here. Home against Nottingham Forest. Ipswich Town, they were plus 235 7 days ago to win this game. Now they're plus 285 to win. Nottingham Forest, minus 105. No real new injury concerns for either team outside of Twanzebe. He did miss last week's game. But Ipswich Town got back Enciso, got back Hutchinson last week. So that's a nice little boost for their attack. You took on You took on both teams to score. I think it was the Ipswich Town Crystal Palace game last week.
Yeah, I had. Yeah, it was both teams to score. It ended up being 1-0 Crystal Palace. So I wasn't even close. I asked them to basically for the both teams to score, no draw. Neither team scored, and it was and Palace won. So it was tough, but So it wasn't that close, but we're back again here. We have a little bit of a different matchup. I felt like Crystal Palace was definitely the better team going into that game. I feel much stronger about Nottingham Forest coming off a huge result over Man City last weekend. And they're back. They are going to go on the road here. That one was at the City Ground where they won 1-0. But this one it's at Ipswich. It's a little, definitely not where they feel comfortable, but Ipswich has been, pretty poor lately. I will say Forest has struggled on the road, but I think just like given the competition that they've got here in Ipswich, who has, I believe, dropped, is it 4 straight? They have not been good. I like a couple things here. I entertained. You look at Nottingham Forest money line; it's minus 105, so like not bad there. That was entertaining to me here as I looked at it. And then you can get both teams to score. No, I think it might be, I think I'm a little like kind of a scorned lover after Ipswich didn't score against Palace last weekend. So that one is kind of top of mind here. That's plus 115. I'm going to skip both of those just because, I look at Forest, who've dropped 3 straight on the road. And I think although I don't think they'll have a problem getting 3 points here, it does like sit in the back of my mind. So I'm going to just avoid that money line. But I actually like Nottingham Forest. It's a corners bet, corners and wagers here. Over 5.5. That's where their over under is set out for corners for this game. It's minus 110. And I'm kind of basing this more a little bit on what Ipswich has done in terms of corners conceded. You go over to the RotoWire handy dandy cheat sheet. You can kind of compare and contrast their splits from home and away, corners conceded. Forest, not a big, not a huge corner taking team. They, as we know, they kind of sit in, they play a little bit of a counterattacking, especially against better teams. Ipswich, maybe not the best team that they'll face, but I'm also basing this off the fact that they played in the FA Cup. Was that 2 weeks ago, I think?
10 days ago from now. So
yeah. So it went to, was it to PKs?
Yeah.
But you look at that, and Nottingham Forest had 11 corners there, I think. So they put up a ton of corners there, and I think they'll be able to do that again here. I do expect them to like maybe possess a bit more and kind of press this defense. So I'm on Forest over 5.5 corners. It's minus 110.
I've hated betting on Nottingham Forest this year, so that I'm giving you this game. Yeah, corners might as well. It's Ipswich Town. Last week we were like, hey, they can at least score against every team, and then they didn't score against Crystal Palace.
Yeah, that was tough.
I think I kind of want to go back to what we said with that, and I don't know. I kind of like both teams to score here, and I kind of like over 2.5. It's just like this Ipswich Town defense just isn't good, and Nottingham Forest have been playing above their XG all season with Chris Wood. So I think if you just combine those two, it feels like a spot where Forest are going to get great opportunities to score. And maybe Ipswich Town, they're at home, so maybe they'll sneak one out somewhere. So I kind of like that, even though the recent numbers, the recent matchups don't suggest that. I don't know, this Ipswich Town defense it just doesn't seem like it's as cohesive or playing together as it was earlier in the season. Even though they only gave up 1 goal against Crystal Palace last week, they gave up more than 3 XG, 5 big chances. Just like overall, the underlying numbers in that game weren't too positive for Ipswich Town.
Yeah, it's just you mentioned it. You hit it on the head with the lack of defensive cohesiveness. They were pretty solid against Palace, but yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to hold back this overachieving Nottingham Forest team.
Yeah, stupid overachievers. Speaking of over and under achievers, we have Manchester City are at home as a minus. It's only minus 145. The odds have gone down on this. Home against Brighton. They used to be minus 190. Now that's just gone down to minus 145 to win. Brighton are plus 350 to win. So the odds are kind of interesting. This is another week where Man City didn't have to worry about midweek games. They're a little bit more rested. They still have some injuries to their defenders, but Kushanov has been starting for a little bit. Ruben Diaz is still there. Their guys are still there. Nico Gonzalez has been starting as well. They lost that game against Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest been solid at limiting teams, and they limited Manchester City. Are Brighton going to play like that? Brighton haven't really been the same kind of team. And now Manchester City at home. I'm going back to one of the bets I used last week. Manchester City, they're not playing their A level, their prior levels, but I still think that they're going to control the majority of this match, and Brighton are going to get their best opportunities with guys like Minta and guys like Miedema off the counter and that kind of thing. I don't think it's going to be where, okay, Brighton are in the attacking third for good chunks of the game. So let's go Brighton under 3.5 corners plus 115 odds. Last week, I did a dumb single game parlay. As I look back at it, I took Man City over 4.5 corners against Nottingham Forest, combined with Nottingham Forest under 4.5 corners. Of course, Man City, I think they finished with 3 in that one, Forest had 2, but I was going with one side of this one. So Brighton under 3.5 corners plus 115.
I kind of love that. Interest, yeah. You said overachieving and maybe underachieving. I think, I don't think anyone's overachieving in this game, to be honest with you. I think Brighton's kind of right where we expected them. But yeah, City for sure underachieving in comparison to what we've expected from them over the past 6 seasons or so. So even longer than that. But yeah, we're back-to-back corners bets here to get this show kicked off. So it's gonna.
We're not done. We're not done.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're into these corners bets, like stick around because we're not done, as Adam said. But yeah, interesting bet here. I'm always a little weary, but like you said, the full week with no midweek matches is like it's a big deal for teams. When you're not having to play 3 days, you can kind of rest and get the body, trying to get the body back to a semblance of what it has been, and you give Pep enough time to like get his tactics right, and you kind of it's tough to bet against them.
Yeah, I think I also looked at Man City's, recent games at home. It hasn't been terrible. One game against Plymouth where they had 20 corners. Okay, whatever. The prior to that was that Liverpool match, and Liverpool got their chances, but Man City were in the attacking third a lot of that match. And then before that, it was the Newcastle 4-0 win. So those are the 3 recent home matches. So it's not like they're at their they're at the abyss right now of their season. I think they're kind of coming out of that. So I think that I'm not going to take money line here, but I'll take this corners one. So Chris's next game he's talking about also on Saturday, standalone game on Saturday. We got the Bees, the double Bees, the Bees and the Cherries, the Cherry Bees. Bournemouth are home against Brentford. Bournemouth are minus 130 to win. Brentford are minus 320. Nothing really of injury note for either of these teams. Evan Nielsen got his first start in the league play since he was out for 2-3 months probably with an injury. So that was a nice little boost for Bournemouth, even though Dango Tara was playing well for him. But Bournemouth are at home, minus 130. Seems kind of small line here for a money line, but Brentford are a respectable squad. So what are you taking?
Yeah, the other kind of it's not an injury, but it was a suspension that I think is worth mentioning. And isn't this Ilya Zarbani's back? First game back?
Yeah.
Or did he play last week?
He's back. He's back from this.
Okay, so he was suspended. He had that red card. I think it was against.
It was against Wolves. I think they lost that one 1-0 because
he's a big miss. He's been great for them all season. I've got him on a couple fan tracks teams, so I'm kind of a fan of him. And so he's back from suspension. He definitely shores up their back line a little bit more. They had to put somebody in who was not typically starting. I think that affected them. I'm also thinking about my bet last weekend, that miss on Brentford double chance where I took them against Villa, and Villa come away with a 1-0 win at Brentford too, by the way. So that one was tough for me to see that. But Bournemouth at home, they've been so tough. They're like it's easy to root for this team given their players. Like they have a lot of guys to root for. Like I think that are gonna Kirkez, Tyler Adams, of course, who's probably a favorite amongst us at least, and they've got a lot of fun. Semenyo, so he's just like, I think he's going to get a big move here in the summer. So really good team. And I had to get creative here because you say Bournemouth minus 130 is the money line here. I'm a little weary of it. I think Brentford have dropped their levels in the second half of the season, but I'm taking Bournemouth. It's kind of similar to last weekend, but you got to stay with me here. Bournemouth double chance, so win and or draw. Over 2.5 goals. You look back at their previous match history here. They played. This would have been. Was this in October, November?
I think I saw December, maybe.
No,
I got this graphic
November
wrong, but
3-2. Yeah, no, looks good. Bournemouth total chance. So over 2.5 goals. But either way, they've been getting over these 2.5 goals in the past few matches here. 3-2, 2-1, 2-2. So it's been, last 3 matches over 2.5 goals. I like this. I just think that we'll see if could be, I think it might be 2-2, 2-1. I do. Oh yeah, I see where you got the graphic wrong here. It should be Bournemouth and Brentford if you're watching on YouTube here, but Bournemouth double chance over 2.5 goals. And then I had to sprinkle it in because I did the Bournemouth double chance in over 2.5, and it was -125. And I can't, as a podcaster here, I can't come on and give you a parlay for -125. That's just kind of soft. So then I was like, all right, like how do we sweeten this even more? And you look at Brian Mbeumo here, and he's got 2+. Adding Mbeumo 2+ shots here to make it +170. And you look at his stats here. He was held to 1 shot against Villa, but prior to that, like his previous 5-6 games, he's getting 3 shots, 4 shots, 2 shots. So I feel pretty good about this one, about adding that in to get a much better number.
I'm surprised he didn't add Semenyo after talking him up for a little bit, but
well, yeah. I mean, I looked at it, but his shot to make this bet better, it was at 3+ bets or 3+ shots, and the numbers weren't quite as good. So I had to go elsewhere.
The shot props on favorites are just like ludicrous. It's like, the starting striker 5+ shots is minus.
Yeah, I think it was like the first one, like. Yeah, I think the first one was like 2+ shots and it was like -900. I was like, oh crap, that's not going to work. So then I switched off them.
Yeah, that's the one thing. The downside of betting shot props, you can't bet unders. You can't bet under shot props, but the sports books will give you like ridiculous odds on favorites, especially minus favorites for shot props. So yeah, that's the downside of same game parlays with shot props. But I'll read through this here. Bournemouth double chance plus over 2.5 goals, and Brian Mbeumo 2+ shots is +170 odds. Got a couple games here before we get to the Carabao Cup final. Arsenal are home against Chelsea. Chelsea are. So we're doing this Thursday. Chelsea's match actually just started right now. As we are speaking. And I think Cole Palmer was dropped from the starting 11. So Cole Palmer's rested after his missed PK. And
rested or arrested?
He's on the bench. I don't think he was arrested.
Wow, that's a pretty huge move. Just like out of form right now.
Yeah, it's been
I guess I mean it is Europa Conference League, so whatever. I think that's actually not that big of a move. Now that I think about it.
Dewsbury Hall and Tyreek George into the 11 for Chelsea.
Fair enough.
But yeah, for this one, this is Sunday. This is an early Sunday slate. Arsenal -120 to win. Chelsea +340 to win. Arsenal coming off a draw where they pretty much rotated their entire side in the second leg against PSV. And injury-wise, nothing new. All these have been out. I guess we'll see about Reece James. I think he's on the bench today. Yeah, he's on the bench today, so I think he'll be ready to start this one. With Mount Malagusto picked up an issue himself. But Gabriel Martinelli returned from injury last week, and so he could start for Nwaneri or Trossard or someone like that in the 11 for Arsenal, or even Mikel Merino here. That's a possibility. They go back to that false 9. But we look at these two teams. Chelsea have just been struggling to score without a true striker, without Nicholas Jackson. Arsenal have been hit or miss. They have that PSV match, but really these other matches have been, ho-hum. Mikel Merino, maybe he's scoring a couple goals off the bench, but really haven't been scoring. My bet here is another graphic mistake here. I just put 2.5 goals, but I'm taking under 2.5 goals at -110 odds. So what do you think? I almost went Arsenal money line here, but I don't really want to trust Arsenal, so I'm just going. You could go like Arsenal double chance, maybe under 2.5, under 3.5, something like that. But I feel like this is like one of those 1-1 kind of games. Maybe Arsenal take it 1-0, something like that. But under 2.5 goals is -110 odds.
Under, nice. Okay, so yeah, that's an interesting take. I mean, there hasn't been, aside from Champions League, there's been plenty of goals in their games, but yeah, you look at like their league form here against some toughish teams. They haven't been. There's not been many goals in it, many other matches here. So I guess I get it here. I wonder. Yeah, Cole Palmer's struggling to score, and that's most of where Chelsea scores goals. So I feel that. I wouldn't. Do you think Arsenal's going to come away with 3 points here, or are they going to be able to kind of get back in form in the league and get 3 points?
If anything, I would lean on that. I would lean on the Arsenal money line. Okay. Especially, I mean, we got the international break coming up, so I think that's another boost as well. So you combine that with Chelsea playing today with, they got some backups in, but they're still a lot of their number one guys are starting today's match. And it's going back to these Chelsea performances without Nico Jackson. 2-1 loss at Brighton, 3-0 loss at Brighton, 2-1 loss at Aston Villa. They get it back against Southampton, then they play Copenhagen, then 1-0 against Leicester City. So it's just like losing and they aren't scoring. So I just think it's going to be a classic Arsenal game. They dominate possession. Maybe this isn't a place to get their corners, and I think both teams just struggle to score.
Yeah, plus those 2 wins they're getting, or 3 wins or so, there are Southampton and Leicester, the two of the worst teams in the league. So
yeah, so I wouldn't really. It's not really too much to put into those ones. Another game at the same time is Fulham are home against Tottenham, and Tottenham also are just started right now. Tottenham plus 240 to win this one. Fulham plus 100 to win this one. Sasa Lukic is still suspended for Fulham, and that's kind of it. Tottenham, I guess they're getting back. They should have Van de Ven and Romero both available to start. I think both of them. I guess maybe Romero started last week, but either way, I think both should be ready to start. Donzo picked up a hamstring injury himself, but otherwise they're getting a little healthier, but they have this game today. They have to come back against Alkmaar. And Fulham, I initially looked at Fulham money line plus 100. They're at home, but I went corners here. So let's go corners. Looking only in the first half. So Fulham, I like Fulham. They usually come out pretty hot and heavy in the first half. And I went against top corners last week. I picked Bournemouth corners. So let's just do Fulham corners. Instead of Fulham, I was looking at -1.5 for the match, taking Fulham minus half a corner in the first half is -115 odds. Are you a believer in Andres Pereira to get corners in the first half?
Yeah, I think so. It does help that Tottenham's got, they have been slowly getting more healthy and added some guys to their back line. That kind of, you got to believe that helps them maybe not concede as many corners. But I think this is an interesting enough bet to go with. I'm not sure that I completely agree with it, but Fulham to maybe get.
You should agree with that.
4 corners and Tottenham have 2, or 5 and 2, or Tottenham maybe not press high.
Yeah, 4-2, 3-1, 5-2, 5-1. Fulham are going to get 3 corners in like the first 10 minutes. Bank on it.
All right, I like it. Nice. Yeah, I'm a little weary, but we'll see here. I think Tottenham. I guess they're playing right now, aren't they? Or they just kicked off.
They just kicked off. Yeah.
And they're at home, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So that a little bit of a short turnaround here for them. So that might actually give
Van de Ven and Romero actually. Van de Ven and Romero both started actually. So are they both going to start again on a short week? I don't know. So
yeah, we might. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it's a fun bet for sure. I don't know, two kind of like similar sides here. I feel like
fairly. The
Fulham are definitely a lot more organized, but yeah.
Probably for the most part. They're struggling to get some wins lately, but we got the EFL Cup, the Carabao Cup final on Sunday. Liverpool are back at it, and they are -150 to win. Newcastle are +390 to win. And over 2.5 goals, -150, under 2.5 goals, +120. Can Liverpool bounce back here? They're not going to have Trent Alexander-Arnold. It doesn't look like they're going to have Konate, but maybe. So kind of a maybe somewhat injury situation. They don't have Connor Bradley either. So is this like a Joe Gomez at right back kind of a thing? Slot's going to have to figure that out. So other side of that, Anthony Gordon's not going to be playing. So, their left winger is going to be an absence there. But how are you going to bet this one? Liverpool bounce back or Newcastle put up a fight?
This is an interesting one because you mentioned Trent's probably out at right back. That ankle injury looked pretty brutal. Konate, I think Slot came out and said that he was just fatigued, like he was tired at the end of that Champions League game. So I think he's going to play. I haven't looked since, I guess that would have been Wednesday, but I think that Konate will come back into the starting lineup, especially because Joe Gomez is still out. He had hamstring surgery in February, so I don't think he's even available. Connor Bradley's out as well. So they're kind of like hard up for right back options. So I expect Kwanzaa, honestly, will come back at right back, or like they're going to have to do like a makeshift, like Wataru Endo or something. So they're, that center back. So it'll be like a combo of like Kwanzaa's in. I think he'll be in the starting 11. And it's dependent on Konate, whether that's at center back or right back. And then if Konate's out, he'll go to center back. We'll put in Endo maybe or something like that. So it'll be interesting. But you mentioned, like at least Isak's back for Newcastle, which is, because he had missed that meeting of probably about 2 weeks ago. But they're going to be missing their second best attacker in Anthony Gordon. They'll play Murphy out at right and then Willock on the left, probably with Isak, obviously as their best strike option, which is a big boost and could definitely challenge, whoever plays in defense for Liverpool. But I think the midfield battle is pretty even. Like Newcastle notoriously have a pretty physical midfield with Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali, and Joelinton. Like very good athletically, like match up pretty well with most midfields and or are better than a lot of them. But I think Liverpool is pretty strong with McAllister, Gravenberch, and Szoboszlai. But then we talked about this before the show, but we'll probably see Trippier and Livramento at right and left back, and I think that's where I expect Liverpool to kind of have the advantage here. And a couple weeks ago, they won 2-0. It was definitely, they were missing Newcastle was missing Isak, but I think we see something similar to that again here. I think Liverpool will be able to win 2-0, 3-1, and kind of run away with it. Big disappointment on Tuesday. So mentally, I'm interested to see if they come back out and are like, all right, let's go. Like that happened, and we're gonna make it right here in the cup final. But I think they win 3-1, 2-1, and so I'm gonna go Liverpool minus 1.5. It's plus 170. So back to back plus 170s. That's how I got here. I'm trying to get my I'm back down this week after a couple losses last week. I think I got a little scared last week, so I'm back on these plus 170s.
Yeah, correct my mistake. I said Joe Gomez. He's actually out with a hamstring injury as well, so he is not going to be playing. Yeah, I mean, you look back at that last game a few weeks ago, 2-0. It was at Anfield, so I don't know how much we're going to put into it. Newcastle did get dominated in that one. They didn't have Joelinton in that, so maybe that's the difference. It's hard to say, but yeah, kind of what you mentioned, Trippier. I think that Liverpool, even though Salah is Salah, I almost wonder. We'll see if Gakpo and Diaz both start. Gakpo's been dealing with a bit of some injury issues the last couple of weeks, but maybe we get Diaz and Gakpo both in the starting 11 again, and you get one of those guys in the left wing, probably Diaz, probably. We'll see what the lineup looks like, but I think they're just going to attack Trippier a little bit. Trippier is just like slow and old at this point, and that's going to be the main weakness. It feels like so. I think that's just going to be the biggest edge, unless I don't know, Harvey Barnes is running at Kwanzaa or whoever's playing right back kind of thing. I think that's just going to be the biggest edge in this game. So maybe I'm not going to say Liverpool by 2 goals, but I do think that they will win this one.
Ought to be interesting. You got any bets that you want to throw down on this League Cup game?
Yeah, Liverpool minus 2.5.
Just up the ante. What is that, like 250 or something like that? 300?
I'll just do. I don't know if I'm actually going to take this. I don't know if I believe in it myself, but like Newcastle race to 5 corners or race to 3 corners. Race to 3 corners is plus 205. Race to 5 corners is plus 320. I don't know. I mean, this isn't like this is it's a neutral match. You mentioned the midfields, and like I don't think it'd be crazy, especially with Liverpool coming off that match. Like it maybe Liverpool just comes out and is like, screw Tuesday, screw Champions League, we're gonna win this one. But the Newcastle Twitter account has been hyping this game for weeks now. This is what they've been playing for. Liverpool have, they were playing for that PSG game, and as we talked about last week, the final against Southampton was another final as well. But Newcastle have been like prepping for this game. They've been looking forward to this one for a couple weeks, and I don't know. It feels like this is a game where they kind of want to go for it from the start, get that opening goal. So maybe it leads to corners as well. So that's what I'll say. I'll say Newcastle corners. Yeah, let's do that.
This is corners and wagers, so I don't mind that move. Like a race
I
to
just
3
talked
or a race to 5.
I just talked myself into it. I think I'm going to take both those, actually. I sold myself.
Nice.
So hopefully I sold the listener as well.
Yeah, I love it.
That's all we got. Game week 29 and the EFL Cup final. RotoWire.com/soccer trial, 48-hour trial. If you're watching on YouTube, I got the FPL cheat sheet up. Only 8 matches this week in the Premier League because we got the Cup final. And then Crystal Palace and Aston Villa are off for obvious reasons. So Manchester City are the biggest favorite. I do have a Manchester City bet. Wait, today on this show. All right, never mind.
Yes, talked about it.
I have 3 more bets in an article that will be up on Friday for a Saturday's matches. So check that out, rotowire.com/soccer. That's all we got today, Chris. Do you have any more thoughts on game week 29?
No, looking forward to the final on Sunday, and some nice games here. Nothing like Arsenal, Chelsea, probably the pick of the litter here, but otherwise, some pretty mixed bag of games.
Mixed bag of games, yeah, you could say that. We got this Arsenal West Ham game, Wolves Southampton game without Mateus Cunha. Just an interesting batch of matches is what we'll call it. So,
batch of matches for sure.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. RotoWire.com/soccer. You can find Chris at CHROwen8. I am at RotoZdroik. We got international break coming up. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Thank you, Chris. Good luck on your bets. See you everyone in a bit.
Thanks, Adam.